Welcome back to the shop. I've gotten a lot of questions as well as suggestions regarding my tracer attachment, so I thought I'd make a quick video to address some of them. Let's start with some of the simple ones. This is the valve that I'm using to control the air pressure going to the pneumatic cylinder. I usually run it at about 6 psi or so, and the way this thing works is it'll bleed off any excess pressure above what it's set at. So as this is following along the pattern and the pneumatic cylinder is increasing and decreasing in stroke length, this will bleed off excess pressure as needed in order to keep the working air pressure going to the air cylinder the same. So if I manually pull this back, you'll see that the needle will wiggle a little bit, but basically stays the same. That way, whether or not this thing is tracking up an incline or decline in the pattern, the pressure pushing the tool bit into the workpiece is always constant. There were also a couple questions about this bar, how sturdy it is, and how much deflection there is as the stylus pushes into the pattern. So we've got an indicator on here. We'll even go ahead and turn up the air pressure quite a bit. And as I manually move this on and off the pattern, you can see the indicator just barely moves, but no noticeable deflection. We can move this to another spot and try it. Same thing, the air pressure's turned up. Maybe a 0.5 thousandth or so worth of wiggle on the needle, but that's about it. There were several comments about the size of the tool bit I was using in comparison to the size of the stylus. This is about a 3/8 diameter, and this is a little bit under 1/4 inch. And you're absolutely correct. Using this tool bit and the larger size stylus, the workpiece that's produced is not going to be an exact copy of the size of this pattern. Because the widths are different, as this is following the pattern, the width of the cut produced is not going to exactly match what this is following along. And I guess to me, it's not that important. I'm not trying to produce a workpiece that is specifically an exact match of this pattern. I made the tracer attachment more for the purpose of helping me create curves like this that I couldn't otherwise do using just the hand wheels on the lathe. It would be a pretty simple fix. Either grind a wider tool bit, 3/8 of an inch wide, to match this stylus, or make a narrower stylus to much closer match this tool bit. Which brings us to our last suggestion. The number one thing people put in the comments was to add a bearing to the end of the stylus so that it will track easily along the pattern and not bind up. And I guess what I should have been more clear on is where this thing is binding. To me, it's not an issue of friction between the stylus and the pattern. It's an issue of this bar bending and binding up in the brass bushing here. So as I move this thing along here, it'll track fine down and up this curve like you saw in the last video when I was making the hammerhead. But if I try to go the opposite way, when it gets to this incline right here, it can't do it. And now if I push harder, you'll see it actually starts to flex a little bit and the stylus is bending. Maybe you can see it a little bit better from a more overhead view, but if I put pressure on the carriage, you'll see the stylus bending just a little bit. So because this thing is trying to track up a steeper than 45-degree angle incline, there's more pressure pushing this stylus this way than there is pushing the air cylinder to retract. And because of that, it bends the bar and binds up in this brass bushing. So I'll be completely honest, I haven't tried this yet. I'm a little skeptical, but let me get this swapped out and we'll give it a shot. Alright, I've got the stylus switched out. Just going to put a couple drops of oil on here. I would do this with the normal one as well, just to help it slide as best as possible through this brass bushing. And also a little bit along the pattern just to make it as slippery as possible. So I just need to rehook up the air pressure. We'll dial this in to about 6 pounds. That should work. Hang that here out of our way. And give this thing a try. I really hope it helps. So, I'm just going to feed along here like I would with the other one. That still binds up right there. Does feel smoother along the rest of the pattern, but that steep incline, and you can see the bar starting to bend again. Now if I wiggle it a little bit, it did seem to get up over there, but it doesn't want to go if I just push on it. I'm afraid I'm going to bend the bar permanently. But if I kind of wiggle the hand wheel, it'll jump up over that curve. Same with this side. If I wiggle it a little bit, it'll go up over it, but it won't free feed right up over it. So it does seem like it's better than it was before. It wouldn't do that before, even if I, like I said, if I wiggle the hand wheel like this. But it's not smooth enough to cut very well like that. This is smoother. So, I don't know, guys, give me some suggestions. Would a linear bearing or something in here help to keep this from binding as well? Or would, I don't know, something wider or longer help keep the bar from bending so that it will retract easier and not bind up in this brass sleeve there? Keith Fenner actually just made a video the other day about his hydraulic tracer. I would assume everybody that follows my channel probably already follows his, but if not, you should definitely go and check out Keith Fenner's channel. He showed how his hydraulic tracer works and how there's no solid mechanical connection between the stylus following the pattern and the tool post that's holding the tool and therefore cutting the workpiece. With his, the stylus follows the pattern with such a light force that he can move it with his finger and the tool post will react accordingly. But he can pull on the tool post with 2 hands and it doesn't budge. So the forces on the stylus and the tool post are not the same. With mine, that's the biggest downfall. There's a mechanical connection between the tool post and the stylus following the pattern. We could go ahead and turn this down to just a few pounds and it'll follow along the pattern much more easily. You can see it goes right up over those. The problem is, at this low of pressure, there's just not enough forwards pressure to keep the tool bit cutting in the workpiece. The tool pressure would be higher than the force pushing this forward, so you'd end up with the tool bit just skating across the outside diameter of your workpiece. I appreciate all the comments and suggestions on improvements to this thing. I'll definitely be leaving this in place. Like I said, if nothing else, it's a much more similar diameter to the tool that I'll be using, so it'll cut more accurately to the patterns that are made, and it does ride a little bit more smoothly across here. If you have any other suggestions or ideas to make this thing track up a steeper angle, replacing this brass bushing or whatever it might be, leave me your ideas in the comments section. I appreciate all the ideas. Thanks for watching.